If you watch this channel, you know that I am a huge fan of the Name Unity Atom. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's an absolute workhorse. We listen to it all the time. About the only knock that I have against it is its price, because at around $3,000, depending on how you have it configured, it's simply cost prohibitive to a lot of people. Now, what if I told you, though, you could have the lion's share of its functionality, not to mention a good portion of its sound quality, but for less than what you would pay in sales tax on an Atom? Would you be interested? Well, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, because we're going on an adventure with the Arylic A50 today. The Arylic A50 is a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth-enabled integrated amplifier that, like I said, will retail for likely less than the sales tax on a brand new Name Unity Atom. And this 35 watt per channel integrated amp is small. I mean, look at it. It's tiny. And yet, this little guy packs quite a lot of features, mainly its ability to connect to your locally stored music or stream wirelessly or via Bluetooth from most every streaming service on the market right now. It can do it in high res, up to 24/192, all through an app that is strangely familiar, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. In fact, you can even connect multiple A50s throughout your house for a distributed audio system. So for most enthusiasts, at least on paper, this little guy does what a modern integrated amplifier should. Behind the scenes, the A50 has been an absolute workhorse for us and this channel. We're only just now reviewing it, but we've had it for the bulk of 2020. And as a result, we've connected it to a wide range of loudspeakers, not to mention used it as a budget benchmark to compare against other integrated amplifiers. When I say we've used a wide range of speakers with this, I mean it. We've used it with most Q Acoustics loudspeakers, including the Concept 300s that we've reviewed on this channel, our Klipsch Heresy Mark IVs, Wharfedale Dentons, the Yamo C97 Mark II. Heck, we even paired the A50 with the Bowers & Wilkins Signature Towers. And we've watched movies through it as well. I know it's not technically a home theater product, but we have connected this to our LG 8K display using an HDMI to analog converter, which we'll get linked to down in the description below. Now, if you're asking yourself, but what integrateds specifically have you compared the A50 against? You're just gonna have to hang out and wait and see. Now, I don't need to call any more attention to the A50's size, and I think you can tell by now that it's a pretty minimal design, as there are no physical controls anywhere on the unit itself. So control falls to the 4Stream app. And a quick word on the 4Stream app. If this is not the OEM for what Name or Bluesound used, I'm not a lawyer, but I think someone might be getting some legal papers in the mail. But it stands to reason. I was a big fan of the Name app. I even liked the Bluesound app. So I'm a huge fan of the 4Stream app here. And getting up and running with 4Stream, including connecting to your favorite streaming services, not to mention just setting up the A50 itself, is straightforward and easy, something that I just can't say about a lot of other streaming control apps on the market right now. In terms of sound, the A50's overall sonic characteristic is actually pretty neutral. It may be a touch dry compared to some of the more refined Class AB designs, but it is nowhere near brittle or harsh the way a lot of digital amplifiers are often stigmatized. That said, you can definitely affect the tone of this amplifier through your choice in loudspeaker. And while we're on the topic of loudspeakers, because this is only a 35 watt per channel amplifier, you're just not going to want to pair it to a lot of inefficient loudspeakers on the market right now. For example, I wouldn't pair this with, say, the Polk L100 or maybe even the ELAC debut reference bookshelf loudspeakers, especially if you're going to try for concert level volumes, as it just doesn't have the power to do that. So I recommend a loudspeaker that is an efficiency of 90 dB or greater, and you're going to want to stick to this, especially if you plan on getting rowdy. The A50's bass is surprisingly competent. Now at 35 watts per channel, it may not have the grunt to exact absolute control over every bass driver on the market right now, but for what it is, it more than holds its own. And the bass that is present is incredibly agile. I'm talking lightning quick. There's a lot of snap, good decay, great impact, not to mention loads of detail. The A50's mid-range is fairly uncolored. Earlier I did say this amp was on the neutral side of the spectrum, and the mid-range shows that in spades, though it is very textural and detailed. So if you're looking for an amplifier that has a bit of warmth or imparts a certain sense of romanticism, maybe gives you a more forward or laid-back presentation, that's just not going to be your experience here. Though at higher volumes, there is some thinning in the mid-range, and through certain speakers, you may encounter just a hint of grain. But on a whole, the mid-range here is sort of just the facts, ma'am, which is something I really like. The high frequencies are detailed and airy, but a touch dry in comparison to Class A or AB designs, but I absolutely just love the top-end detail and lack of harshness at high volumes, though they still do lack just that a little bit of shimmer, and if you watch this channel, you know how much I love me some shimmer. But still, with playing back recordings that may have a fair amount of compression, these are high frequencies that don't go ugly early, and as a result, they just remain pleasant at virtually every volume. The soundstage on the A50 is great, just straight up. It may not be as good as some of the best amplifiers on the market right now, but it is dangerously close, maybe only a step or two behind. The soundstage is equal parts width to depth with great definition and delineation within it, including awesome center fill, but the best part about it is it scales proportionately as the volume gets turned up. This is not a soundstage that becomes thinner or wider, it grows in proportion to the volume, and that is amazing. Dynamics are startlingly good, even for an amp like this. Yes, dynamics do improve if you pair the A50 with more efficient loudspeakers, but even at lower volumes, it's so engaging. The responsiveness here in all but the absolute lowest octaves is impressive. If you're a fan of drum solos, I highly recommend checking this amplifier out, as I think you're going to find the snap and impact that this little tiny amp possesses to be just incredible. But if you are looking for a little bit more punch or volume output, there is another product that Arylic makes that you might want to be aware of, and it's the S50 Pro. And the S50 Pro is essentially a preamp version of the A50. Yes, it just lacks the A50's amplifier section. So if by this point in the review you're liking what I'm describing as the A50's sound, not to mention its functionality, the S50 Pro is what you should be looking at, because it enables you to attach it to any stereo amplifier on the market right now, which will enable you to power any loudspeaker you may want. And just one more quick note about the S50 Pro. If you currently have an integrated amplifier that you absolutely love, but that integrated amplifier lacks, say, Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connectivity, or maybe you have a vintage piece, which we know lacks all of those things, the S50 Pro from Arylic is a great option to pair with those types of products, especially if you're not looking to change or color their sound in any way. Now, because of the A50's size, there are obviously going to be some limitations and some drawbacks, specifically with relation to the types of cables you may want to use. I actually had to roll my own speaker cables for this review because the A50 uses a Phoenix-style connector. And Phoenix-style connectors just aren't compatible with a wide range of speaker cables on the market right now. And if you like bulkier, say, audiophile cables, you may be looking for ways to weigh the A50 down to keep it from kind of tipping, as those cables tend to be heavier and the A50 is very light. Now, another caveat that I have to the A50 size has to do with the fact that its size is just simply deceiving, because what you're not seeing in our B-roll is the substantial power supply that ships with this unit. I absolutely hate it, but I understand why it's here. Just know that if you're thinking of getting the A50, you're gonna have to find a home for the A50 and its substantial power supply. Also, I wish there were just a few manual controls on the A50 itself, because I don't always want to pull out my phone and launch an app just to turn my system down a notch. So at a minimum, source or volume controls would be welcomed here. Now, with respect to the remote control, it works, it's fine. We can't have too high an expectation for the remote for a product as cheap as this, but with no front display, really, we're not sure that all of our commands have actually taken hold, so using the remote is a bit of a spray and pray process. Now, if you pair this amplifier with less than efficient loudspeakers, there are just going to be some limitations to its capability, specifically as it relates to volume output. I hit the limit of the A50 at around 90 dB when paired with the Q Acoustic 3050i towers, but I was able to get a little bit more out of it when I paired it to the Klipsch Heresy Mark IVs, and I reached volume levels around 100 decibels. Now, I don't listen to music at these levels for prolonged periods of time, so I didn't find this to be as big of an issue for me. But if you have less than efficient loudspeakers, or you have a larger room, or you simply just like it loud, this may not be the amplifier for you. And so now the moment you've been waiting for, what did we actually compare the A50 to? Well, straight up, we compared it to our name, Unity Atom, and I have to tell you, it wasn't embarrassed. Yes, the name Unity Atom is better. It sounds better, it's better built, it's more turnkey out of the box, not to mention it has more functionality in terms of connections, and it can drive harder to power loudspeakers. But that said, in terms of overall kind of experience and a large chunk of its sound quality, the A50 is kind of like a mini Atom. And so if you can live with, say, 75% of the performance of an Atom for under $200, that's the A50 in a nutshell. Not to mention the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I think the two products use the same amp. Another product that we compared the A50 to was the Bluesound Power Node 2i, and straight away, I do like the build quality and styling of the Bluesound. I even like that it has physical controls. But in a head-to-head comparison in terms of sound quality, I actually preferred the A50. Now, another product that deserves to be mentioned as a part of comparison is the Denon 150H. Now, the Denon 150H, depending on where you're shopping and when you choose to buy, may be around the Bluesound's price or just a hair above, but it is nowhere near Unity Atom money. And I definitely prefer the 150H over the Bluesound, and I think I would pick the 150H over the Arylic A50 because it's such an all-inclusive unit, and I like that. But those two are a lot more evenly matched than I think people are probably going to be willing to admit. And I have to be honest with you, there's just something kind of inherently fun about knowing that you're listening to an amplifier like the A50 that costs so little and yet really does hold its own and smoke a lot of the competition. So for less than $200, it is very hard for me to find fault with the Arylic A50 because anything and everything that I may want to change about it is only going to add to its size and cost, not necessarily change the way it sounds. So it's one of these quirky audiophile products that you find on the internet that not only punches well above its weight class, but may actually get you to pause, if not rethink what you thought was possible. I know for me, I continue to be amazed by it. So that's it. That is my review of Arylic's A50 Bluetooth Wi-Fi integrated amplifier. What'd you think? What'd you think? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, I have a question for you. Would you build a 2-channel hi-fi system around an amp like the A50? And if you did, could you call it high-end? I want to know, so sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you used any of the links that we leave you down in the description below, know that that is your way of supporting this channel, and we thank you for doing so. If you're looking for another way to support this channel, consider becoming a member. You can click join right down there next to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, Recovering Audiophile, and that's it. Another review in the books. So remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Bye. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great.
You can do better.
I can do better. I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. You know what your son has? He has potential. Oh. Why didn't you just tell me you hated me? God. All right. I hit the limit of this amp's ability.
It got better after you got past the dB section.
Mm-hmm.
The first half just felt kind of robotic.
Okay. All right. I got it. I know what I got you, baby bird. I got you. All right.